nice. Genitive is also very easy to recognize. It's the nominatives and the accusatives that get a little tricky to recognize. Hemerais, kind of a difficult one to pronounce. That's the dative plural. It's also very similar, alpha instead of an omicron. But it's still got your iota in there. And then for your accusative plural, hemerais, it looks like a lot like your genitive plural. Alright, so you just have to use context to tell them apart. Accusative plural and your genitive plural are going to be the same. Alright, any questions on that? I mean, that is the bulk of what you will have to memorize. That is tough. That took me a long time to get all those forms down. Okay? Let me give you a couple notes, so get ready to write this down. A couple things to write down. Here's where the feminine gets tricky. If you were to buy a Greek grammar like this, it would actually give you 5 paradigms for your feminine nouns. I'm giving you one. And then I'm going to give you a few rules.
Goober.
Good? Are we rolling?
We rolling.
Okay. The other function that a genitive can, there are actually more than one. There's something called a genitive absolute. We'll learn that later. But the other one I want you to write down now under the or. It could be ablatival, ablatival, ablatival. And that indicates source. And so it's usually translated from. And so you can translate a genitive by adding an S, like Mitchell's cup. You can add it by saying cup of Mitchell. That's another way to translate it, cup of Mitchell. Or if it's an ablative, it would be, probably you wouldn't say the cup from Mitchell, but you could say the words or the advice from Mitchell. You could say the water from the well, right? It indicates a source. All right, next one. Dative. D-A-T-I-V-E, dative. You see it right there in front of you? Oh, I don't know why I've been spelling it. I've got them in front of you. All right. That indicates your indirect object. Indirect object. What is the indirect object? Anybody know?
The object that is being acted upon.
Being acted upon. Very good. Very good. In our using our earlier example, we say Mitchell threw the cup at Mason. The cup would be no, wait. I'm sorry. Mason there would be the indirect object. It is the object receiving the action. The object being acted upon is the direct object. We were wrong. We need to go back and change that.
The cup is also being acted upon.
The cup is the direct object. You are the indirect object. I gave the book to Mitchell. He is the indirect object. Mitchell. It is the person receiving the action. That is final. So sorry, Chad. You had the direct object there. It is the object receiving the action. To, it's usually translated in English to something. So I gave a black eye to Bowen. Right? Right? Okay. So that is indicated in Greek by the dative form or case, and there are many other uses for the dative. So here's 3 more. One, you've got the locative dative, or the dative of location, I think is an easier way to call it, the dative of location. And instead of translating that to someone or something, you would translate that in. And it's usually going to be followed by a place. In Houston, in Nazareth, right? In Galilee, in Jerusalem. That is your locative dative or your dative of location. Your next one is your instrumental, or as I like to call it, the dative of means. And it tells you by what means something happens. So it's usually translated with a by. By this or by that. I got obese by Whataburger. I don't know.
I flew by plane.
I flew by plane. Excellent. I traveled by horse, maybe. And a more likely thing you'll see in the New Testament. Although there's not much talk of horses in the New Testament. But it's a dative of location. By trusting in Christ. By Christ kind of thing. That's the location of means. And the last one is one of personal advantage, which you would translate for. So, for him, for Mason, for Madison. Dative of personal advantage. But guys, what will make you translate these with the other options is context. If you don't have any good reason to use these other options, stick with the main option, the first one I'm giving you. Nominative is subject, genitive is possession, dative is indirect object, unless the context dictates one of these other things. Does that make sense? Context is king. Alright? And the last one, we're only going to learn one possible meaning or translation, and that is direct object. Accusative, the direct object. That is what is being acted upon. Mason threw the cup. Right? In any given sentence, you don't have to have, but you will most likely have the direct object, right? Mitchell threw the cup. That can stand alone. Mitchell threw at Mason. That doesn't, you have to supply a direct object, right? If you just have the indirect object. So the direct object is the most important. It's the most frequent. You will see the accusative case all the time. It is the direct object. Everyone tracking with me so far? Mitchell.
I was just saying, yeah.
You're good. Madison, you good?
Yeah.
All right. Other than that, you've got 3 genders. Is that weird or what? You've got him, her, mer, shim. She and him and shim. No, you don't have shim. You have an it. Right? You've got masculine, feminine, and neuter. You don't even have to take notes in this one. I'm just making sure you understand. Gender works different in English as it does in Greek. In English, we do have some natural gender, right? We call things that are obviously by nature masculine. We use masculine pronouns, right? Him, for example. Things that are obviously by nature feminine, we use feminine pronouns, her. We have some masculine and feminine endings, right? Like waiter or waitress, right? Cubby or cadet, right? We add et to the end of some things. If we're talking about women for some reason, or so some things we will indicate by gender, but very rarely. And whenever anything doesn't have a natural gender, we usually just say it's neuter, and it could have any kind of ending. In Greek, neuter has a specific ending. And in Greek, there will some things that we would think should be neuter, but will be masculine or feminine. For example, sin is a feminine word. Guys, you could think, oh, that makes perfect sense. Just kidding. Child is neuter. Let's see, I'm trying to think of some things that are masculine. Glory is feminine. Day is feminine. And we'll find you'll come across some things that are masculine as we go. And so things that don't necessarily seem feminine or masculine will have feminine or masculine gender. Okay, let's keep moving. You've got 4 cases in nouns. You've got 3 possible genders. You've got 2 possible numbers. We've already been over this when we talked about verbs, singular or plural. Greek doesn't have a whole lot of dual like Hebrew does, which means there's 2 of something. Hebrew has more than 2 numbers. Greek, fortunately, we just got to learn singular and plural. All right, let's get on to learning these forms. Okay, so that first thing I've got you, someone read me that first word in Greek. Anthropos. Anthropos. Very good. Anthropos, take a guess. What does it mean, first of all?
Person.
Man, person, can mean mankind, but usually it's translated man. Okay, is it, what would you think? Masculine, feminine, or neuter?
Masculine.
It is masculine. It is masculine. Very good. And so what we've got here, go ahead on top of that first, in that blank between plural and anthropos, I want you to write second declension. Second declension.
Where?
In the gap between plural and anthropos.
Oh.
Because those 2 paradigms that you see on the bottom of your first page of your notes are both second declension paradigms. Okay? Now, this can get very confusing, so I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. Second declension covers most of, you may want to write this down. Second declension covers most of your masculine and neuter nouns. Most of your masculine and neuter nouns. And so that first paradigm that is based on the word anthropos is a masculine second declension paradigm. The second one that's based on doron, does everyone see the doron? Beneath the anthropos? That is your neuter second declension paradigm. Okay? So neuter nouns will be declined according to that doron, and masculine second declension nouns will be declined according to the anthropos. Now the reason why I tell you even need to know a second declension is because there are some, and I'll give you there's a space to write this later here, so you don't have to write this yet, but there are some masculine nouns that are actually declined like feminine nouns, which is the first declension. So these are most of your masculine nouns, however, will look like this. Will look like second declension paradigm. Alright, so take a look. I put, like I did with your verbs, I put your endings that you need to be able to recognize in bold. Y'all see that? Okay, so those bold letters on the end, those are your actual endings. The rest is your noun stem. Right, we talked about verb stems before. Well, the rest of this is your noun stem. It's anthrop would be your noun stem for anthropos. Okay, that is what is going to remain the same. The noun stem remains the same, and the endings are going to change according to your case, your gender, and your number. Well, not your gender in this case. Always, anthropos is always going to be masculine. Okay? Everyone following? Yes or no? Yes. Because if y'all aren't following, it won't be clear on there either. Okay, if you have any questions, just stop me. Okay, so what's your first ending? Someone read it to me. Os, very good. Anthropos. That is your nominative singular. Write this down. That is your nominative singular ending. So if you have a subject and the subject is in the singular, that is what it will look like. Anthropos, when man is the subject of the verb. So the man or a man believed in God. That is how it's going to look. It's going to look like anthropos, nominative singular. Good? Your next one, anthropou. What is that?
Are you going down or right? Down.
Down. Anthropou.
Nominative plural?
No. Good guess. Follow the cases I gave you earlier.
Genitive singular.
Genitive singular. Very good. That's your genitive singular. Right? Of a man, of the man, or the man's. Or from the man, if it's ablative. Next one. Dative singular. Anthropo. Anthropo. But what does the omega have on the end? Or beneath it?
The what?
What does that omega have underneath it
Sometime.
in the dative singular ending?
Sometime more.
I gave y'all the name of this. You should have written it down in your notes and memorized it. It's called an iota subscript. Iota subscript. It's an iota, but it's not up on the line. It's beneath a vowel. You'll find them beneath long vowels usually. Right? It has no pronunciation, but it has meaning. You have to know why it's there. In this case, it shows you that it's a dative. Okay, so dative always has that iota subscript underneath the omega. If you didn't write that down before, and you didn't know what it was, you need to write it down now. Put a little arrow. That is an iota subscript. You guys should know how to take notes. I shouldn't have to tell you when the teacher says something that you don't know, that you didn't know, write it down, because otherwise you won't know it next time again. All right, the next one. That's your accusative singular. Anthropon. Anthropon. There is your direct object. You will be seeing that a lot. You'll be seeing that a lot. Let's see. I disciplined the man. Right? The man is your direct object. That sounds kind of weird. All right. Next one. Someone read to me top, right line, top word.
Anthropoi.
Anthropoi. Good. That is obviously nominative plural. Anthropoi. And just go ahead and mark the rest of those. The next one is genitive plural. Anthropone. The next one is dative plural. Anthropois. And the next one is accusative plural. Anthropos. What are some helpful hints for memorizing this? There are not a whole lot. There are not a whole lot. There are some things that these have in common. Dative to me is the easiest to recognize because it's always got an iota somewhere. It's either a subscript or it's in a ois form. It's in the middle of a diphthong. So dative to me is very easy to recognize. If you see an iota in a noun, it's one of the only ones. The only other one with an iota is your nominative plural. Other than that, the best way, I think the genitive plural is pretty easy to memorize with that own there. But other than that, the best way is just to make a little song or just to go through them and just go as, u, o, on, oi, on, ois, us. As, u, o, on, oi, on, ois, us. Or anthropos, anthropo, anthropo, anthropon, anthropos, anthropo, anthropo, anthropon, anthropoi, anthropon, anthropois, anthropos. However you want to do it. Make a little rhyme. You can use a noun with a shorter stem, so you don't have to. It doesn't have to be that long each time. However you want to do it, you've got to memorize those endings. That's the bottom line. All right. We're not going to spend as much time going through the next ones. I'm just going to point out the ones that are different. Okay? The ones that are different are going to be your nominative singular. You see that? Doron. This is your neuter second declension paradigm. And so your nominative singular, it adds, instead of a sigma, it adds a nu on the end. And then the great thing about neuter, it's kind of great, it's kind of not great, is that your nominative and your accusative are going to match. And so look down at the accusative. It's the same as the accusative ending for the masculine paradigm, isn't it? But at this time, the nominative singular matches. And so doron, and then the genitive singular is the same, doru, and the dative singular is the same, doro, and then the accusative singular is the same as the masculine, doron. It's very similar. So the difference there in the singular is in the nominative. So how in the world do you tell the difference between between a nominative and an accusative in a sentence?
Context.
Context. Very good. Y'all are catching on. All right, and for the plural, you can see your genitive plural is the same, your dative plural is the same, but your nominative and your accusative plural end in an alpha. All right, and that's the only difference. These are the easiest to recognize. What's that? Oh, good. It means gift. It means gift. A gift. Are we good? Okay. That is a majority of your words. If you memorize that, you've got the majority of your Greek New Testament noun endings. The majority of your words are going to be masculine and singular. Now, there are a lot of feminine. Probably around 500 different feminine words in the New Testament. But the majority are masculine and neuter. All right. Turn the page. Now we got our feminine. The example I've given you is hemera. It means day. It means day. And this is what people would call your first declension endings. Go ahead and make a note beneath your paradigm that there are some masculine nouns that take first declension endings. And I'll show you how to recognize them later. There are some masculine, but the majority of these are feminine. I think there's 112 masculine nouns that take feminine endings, but most of them are very obscure. They don't appear very often. There are a handful that appear often, whereas there's probably around 400 feminine words in the first. An example of this is phone. Phone, which means sound or voice. So it would be phone for your nominative singular. It'd be phones, right? Are you following me? For your genitive singular, it'd be phone with an iota subscript for your dative singular, and it'd be phoneme for your accusative singular. Okay? So that simplifies things a lot. All you got to know is the letter that the noun stem ends in, and you can know how it's going to be inflected in all of its forms. Mitchell, were you able to follow that while resetting the camera?
I'll copy it off Mason's notes.
Okay, great. And that is the bulk of what we're covering today. That is the hardest part. What time is it? 7:47. Let's go ahead and cover the article and the adjective, then we'll take a break. All right? And then we'll just make sure you got it by going over the homework. And that's how we'll end. Okay, so the definite article. In Greek, there is no indefinite article. No indefinite article. What is an indefinite article in English? A or an. That does not exist in Greek. Okay, so if you see a word, a noun, and it does not have a definite article, it can either be translated without an article at all, or with an indefinite article. So, for example, if you have the word logos, it could either be that means word. It could either be translated word, or it could be translated a word. And so you just have to pick whether or not to supply the indefinite article based on what makes most sense according to English grammar. Does that make sense? Y'all following me? So you can translate it either way. You're not wrong to pick one or the other. Okay? But if it has a definite article, you will almost always translate it with a the in front of it. Definite article in English is usually the man. So ha, logos, the word. Is everyone following? It makes it definite. It's not saying it's a word in general. It's not just saying the idea of word. It is saying the word. In the beginning was the word. That's talking about a specific individual. Does that make sense? And so when we want to make something definite, when we want to point out a specific one, the man, not just a man, we add that definite article. Okay? Here's what it looks like. You can see two paradigms there, sort of, or two groups. The one on the left is, those are all singular, and that little group of 3 columns on the right are all plural. Okay? Somebody tell me that first column on the left-hand side, on the far left, does that look like it would be masculine, neuter, or feminine article? Or the article that goes with masculine, neuter, or feminine nouns?
Masculine.
Masculine, because it follows almost the exact same endings, right? So pretty much your article is almost exactly like your endings. And so it's not, don't be intimidated, don't think, oh, I got to memorize a whole new thing. No, it's very, very similar to your endings. Okay? You got ha for your masculine singular instead of has. So it's a little bit, you don't have a sigma on the end there, but it's very, very similar. And so you've got ha, you've got to, right? It adds a tau to the beginning of most of these. It adds a tau, and then you've got your ending. So you've got to, which is very similar to the genitive singular noun ending u, right? You following? Then you've got to, which is a tau plus the dative singular masculine ending omega, iota subscript. And then you've got ton, which is just a tau plus your accusative singular noun ending. And so it's very easy. It's not as hard as it looks. Okay, so ha, lagos, right? Tu, lagu. To, lago. Ton, lagon. Y'all following me? Very easy, very easy. And so,
Very poetic.
Someone translate, yeah, it is. It rhymes. It has a good flow to it. So someone translate for me, ha, lagos. The word. Someone translate for me, tu, lagu. Uh-huh. That's where we see if y'all are following. No, it doesn't make, S doesn't make it plural like in English. Tu lagu. Oh, the words as in it belongs to the word.
Yeah.
Yes, that is exactly right. It is the words whatever, right? Or maybe a better one would be tu anthropou, the man, right? Okay, to lago. How would you translate that? To lago. Madison, you said you were following, right? To lago.
Would it be plural?
Huh?
Would it be plural?
No. If y'all haven't noticed, I'm just going down that column there. What'd you say? It could be 4, but most likely stick with, unless you've got a reason in the context to translate it as a 4, which remember we said was a personal advantage. right? You just want to translate a dative of indirect object. So it would be to the word. To the word is your default dative translation is to the word. Okay, ton logon. Ton logon. It's just the word as the direct object of the sentence. It's going to be the word as the direct object of the sentence. All right. Are y'all following?
Which one are you on?
We're on the bottom of the far left-hand column under the definite article. We just finished that one. All right?
So now we're at the...
Now we're going to go to the next column. The second to left-hand column. Okay? It's a hey. That is your guess. Is that your feminine or neuter nominative singular article? Feminine, right? Because we said that all feminine words that the stem does not end in an epsilon, iota, a rho, or sibilant, they use the what? The eta. They use the eta. And so it's just taking that eta ending and it's going to put it on all your feminine words. So even with hemera, it's going to have an eta for an article. Right? That's a good thing. You don't have sometimes an alpha article for feminine words. No, it's always this eta. Okay, and so how would we say the full word? It'd be hey, because you see that rough breathing mark on top of it? It would be hey hemera. Hey hemera. Translate that for me. The day. Very good. Next one down. Tes hemeras. Bowen?
Like his day.
Of the day. Of the day. It's not someone else's day. It's the day's something. It's something that belongs to the day. Good. Next one. Te hemera. Te hemera. Madison. Te hemera.
I don't know.
You should be following along. Think about it. What is te hemera? Is it nominative? Is it genitive? Is it dative? Or is it accusative? Look at your article. We're on the third one down. On the second column. See that te?
Yes.
Do you think that is most likely nominative, genitive, dative, or accusative? What'd you say? Good guess. What does it have underneath the eta?
Oh. So it would be...
What does it have under the eta? Answer. Allah. The iota subscript? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay, and that tells you it's what?
Okay.
Good. So this is, when you say te hemera, you're talking about dative. Hemera means day, right? It's in the dative, and it's got a direct, indirect, it's got a definite article. So how would we translate that? How do we translate datives? To, then the article is the, and then the hemera means day. So to the day.
Okay.
All right, so don't, guys, please, you've got to be honest with me. Do not say I'm following if you're not following. All right, you've got Chad. Where are you at, man? All right, then give me this next one. Tain hemera. Tain hemera. How would you translate that?
Still the day, the direct object.
Still the day as a direct object because it's in the accusative. Very good. All right, Mason, you got the next one. What if I said to doron? How would you translate that? To doron.
Wouldn't it be tall?
Ta doron. Thank you very much. Ta doron. Why are you telling me you're following? Huh? Don't say I don't know. Figure it out. Is it in the nominative? Is it in the genitive? Is it in the dative? Or is it in the accusative? I can't be a good teacher unless I know where y'all are at. What is the first one on the list always?
Nominative.
Nominative. Good. Nominative is at the top. So if I say ta doron, a nominative, it's a nominative verb, noun. So how would you translate it? It's got the definite article. What does doron mean? I told you earlier. You didn't write it down? We should have wrote it down when we were going over doron. It means gift.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So how would you translate ta doron? It means gift, and it has a definite article. How do you translate the definite article? Have you been paying attention at all?
Yeah, I've just been writing everything down and I haven't really been understanding it.
Well, the key is to understand it. Okay? That's more important. Okay? So the definite article is translated with the. Okay? So how would you translate it? Ta doron.
The gift.
There we go. All right. Next one. To doron. Doru. Sorry, two Doru. What do you think? The gifts of the gift. Good. Next one. To-doron. To-doro.
To the good.
To the gift. Very good. And the last one. Ta-doron again. This time it's the direct object. Very good. Y'all are following, I think. Let's go. All right. Plurals. Hoi. Okay. That makes perfect sense, right? Because your masculine, that first column of the plurals is masculine, and your masculine nominative plural ending is what? Oi. Very good. So there you go. You just put a rough breathing mark on it, and you make it your article. So it's oi, hoi, anthropoi. Right? Hoi, anthropoi. How would you translate, Mason? Hoi, anthropoi. It's nominative, okay? And anthropoi means man, and it's got the article.
The man.
The man. Excellent job, Mason. Very, very good. Okay, the next one down. Tone anthropon.
Men's.
Men's or of the men. Tois anthropois. To the men. Tous anthropous. The men as a direct object. Very good. All right, your next column is feminine. Hi, hemerai. Makes perfect sense. I mean, compare that column, that middle column of your plurals, with your endings right above. Right above on that feminine paradigm. They're almost identical, aren't they? Hi, hemerai, ton, hemeron, tais, hemerais, tas, hemeras. Easy, easy, easy. And in case I didn't make it clear, those feminine plural endings, those are the same across the board. Doesn't matter if it ends in epsilon, iota, rho, sibilant. It always is in the feminine plural. You can always count on the plural being the same. Hemerai, hemeron, hemerais, hemeras. Which is why I said that if it's anything else, that it's the singular that takes the eta. Okay? The singular that takes the eta. Do y'all understand that? Okay? The plural always stays the same. So you can just circle that plural column and just say, these will not change. These will not change. Doesn't matter what it ends, the noun stem ends in. And then that last column is your neuter column. Ta. Makes perfect sense, right? Because it's ta, dora. Tone, doron. Tois, dorois. And ta, dora. It flows. It makes sense. Listen to me. The article is your friend. Write that down. Put a big smiley face. The article is your friend. The article, you will be glad you learned this. This will help you incredibly because it will help you recognize difficult forms. Because sometimes you'll have, you're going to learn participles. You're going to learn different things in the future that the article, if you know the article, it will help you. You may not recognize what the noun is, but the article will tell you what the noun is. Does that make sense? If you've ever got an article, it's going to cheat. It's a way to cheat and know what that participle or what that noun is, whether it's masculine, singular, or neuter, and whether it is, what case it is in, and whether it's singular or plural. The article is your friend. It will tell you where you can't figure it out on your own. Cool? Okay, adjectives. Here's a couple notes to take for adjectives. Adjectives can take all three endings, most of them. Those are called three termination adjectives. You don't have to write that down. Most adjectives are three termination, means they have three endings that they can take, and so the ending is going to match the noun. It's that easy. All right? Here's how you should write it. Adjectives will agree with the noun in person, gender, and number. And they take the same endings. They agree with the noun in person, gender, and number, and they take the same ending. The only exception to that is something called two termination adjectives. Some adjectives only take two of the endings.
I'm sorry.
We'll get to that more later.
You said they'll agree with the noun in person, gender, and what?
And number. In other words, whether it's masculine or singular. So the endings will match. Alright? Or neuter. You confused?
No.
Did I say something wrong?
Yeah, you said something wrong.
Tell me what I said wrong.
You said masculine or singular. I think you meant to say singular.
Masculine, feminine, neuter. Masculine or singular. Yeah. In every way, it will match and it will take the same endings. Okay? So that's why learning the adjective is not intimidating. It's not a big deal. You know new paradigms to learn. Woohoo! Okay? The hard thing about Greek is the paradigms. Okay? You will learn a million of them by the time we're done. All right? If you can memorize paradigms, you will excel. That is the difficult part. The vocabulary is not that hard because a lot of it is very connected to English. Go ahead, Mitchell. Okay. All right, so let me teach you how to translate adjectives. Okay, look down. There's 3 ways to translate adjectives. This is the fun part. This is the fun part because you get to figure out how to translate the Greek. The first one is attributive. It is I believe, most like our English adjectives. It just attributes, that's why it's called attributive, it attributes a certain quality to the noun that it modifies. That make sense? You may want to write that down, Bowen. It attributes, because later on you're going to wonder, well, how do I translate this? It attributes a certain quality to the noun that it modifies.
It attributes
A quality to the noun that it modifies. Mason, you want to write that down, bud? It attributes a quality to the noun that it modifies. If you're feeling overwhelmed, buddy, it's not your fault. It's because you missed 2 whole weeks, okay? It's like trying to jump in a swimming class after you've already learned how to doggy paddle, right? You're like, what do I do? That's a terrible example. All right, here's a better example. It's like trying to walk into a black belt jiu-jitsu class, right, without going through the other belts in front of it. All right, so you're going to have to go back and learn your green belt and your purple belt and all this other stuff, and then you'll be right on target, okay? So don't worry, Madison, Chad, I know you've done the first lesson, so you're a little ahead of these 2, but you will get it. I mean, it will get a lot easier as you go back and learn the stuff before, okay? So don't be intimidated. Don't worry. All right. Here is how you will tell the attributive apart. It will always be preceded by an article. It will always be preceded by an article. And it will always have the noun there that is modifying. It will have an article and it will have a noun. If it has an article and it has a noun, the article has to be in front of the adjective. Then it is an attributive adjective. All right. So here's our first few examples. Y'all ready to look at the examples? Look up at me when you're ready. Okay. Agathos means good. Agathos means good. And so when it says ha agathos anthropos, it is the good man. Easy, right? That is just like English, isn't it? We would put an article, then we would put the adjective, then we would put the noun. So if you see it in the English order like that, that is, just read it like you would in English. The good man. Okay? But it can also be written ha anthropos, ha agathos. Here's how you can remember that. Read it out literally. The man, the good one, is what it's saying. Does that make sense? It's saying the man, which man? The good man. And so how can we translate that? We don't write the man, the good man. We just write the good man again. So it's translated the same, but it can be written either as the good man or the man, the good one. Okay? All right. Here's your next one. Your predicate. Your predicate. Okay, predicate will not be preceded by an article, but it will have the noun that it modifies. Will not be preceded by an article, but it will have the noun that it modifies. And you can write down that the predicate implies a verb of being. It implies a verb of being.
implies what?
A verb of being, like to be, like is. Let me know when you're ready to go over the examples.
So it's just when it's a noun of being. Is that it?
Let me show you. The examples will help. It says, ha, you following me? Ha, anthropos, agathos. There's no article before the agathos, is there? Before the adjective. There's one before the noun to make the noun definite, but that does not before the adjective. And so what this is the man good. So what do? No. We supply, remember, a verb of being. The man good. Where do we supply the verb of being? Say it, Reagan. Yeah, just say it like you would normally say it. The man is good. The man is good. Instead of the good man. See, the reason why that's important is because that's actually a sentence. That can stand on its own. The man is good. Okay? It's still an adjective, but it implies a verb of being. Guys, you will have to insert English words when you translate a lot. Greek just doesn't have a word for every word, for everywhere we would put a word in English. Or it can be written with it in front. Just like with the attributed, it can follow or come before. The order doesn't matter, right? The order doesn't matter. So it could be agathos, no article, just agathos, ha, anthropos. It's still, the man is good. Following? Chad? Mason? No? No? Okay, what are you confused about, brother?
It's just going too fast for me to write it all down.
What's that?
That's all. It's fine. Just keep on going.
What are you confused about? I want to help you.
I haven't understood like any of the attributive.
Okay, let's back up a little bit. What does an adjective do in English? You know?
Describes
Describes what?
the subject.
A noun, yeah, usually the subject. Very good. Okay, so these are Greek adjectives. Agathos means good. Okay, when it's in the attributive form, when it's an attributive adjective, it is going to modify the noun, right, just like it does in English. Following? And it's translated by putting a quality, attributing, that means giving a quality to that noun. Does that make sense? Does it make sense?
What do you mean by that?
It means, if I said Mason, the big boy, right? You are the big boy, right? The word big is an adjective, right?
Yeah.
And it's giving a quality to the noun boy,
Okay.
right? The big boy.
Okay.
That's all attributive is. It attributes a quality to the noun. So if you ever see it with an article in front of it and with a noun to modify, you just give whatever that quality is to whatever that noun is. Isn't that simple? Give whatever the quality is to whatever the noun is. So in this case, it's the good man. You're giving the quality of good to the person of man. Got it? Okay, and then in the predicate, it doesn't have an article, but it does have a noun that's modifying. And so all you do is you just throw the word is in there. Okay, you just throw a verb in there, a verb of being, like I am, he or she is, and that way it modifies it by adding, in the sense of it adds a verb. And so Mason is big. The boy is big instead of the big boy. Okay? So if you find it in the predicate form, you just add the word is. Does that help? Okay, good. All right, and the last one, this is the easiest one, okay? The last one is substantival. It substitutes for a noun. It substitutes for a noun. In a substantival, I believe it will always have the article, but it will never have the noun with it. It will never have the noun with it. That's why it just says ha agathos. How do you think you might translate that? The good, and then it's talking about something. So context will dictate. If you're talking about dogs, it will be the good dog. The best way to translate it would be without, if you have no context, would be the good one. The good one would be the best way to translate it with no context. But if the context is man, you're talking about man, then you'd say the good man. You're talking about, does that make sense, Mason? It substitutes for a noun. That's why it's called substantival. And so you don't need the noun. You just say one or whatever that subject is talking about. Y'all following? Okay.
I feel like the Greeks took a lot of shortcuts.
They took a lot of shortcuts, baby. They took a lot of shortcuts. Okay, and the only thing I wanted to make sure you write down about Greek word order, just to emphasize one more time. If you need to write it down, write it. If not, if you know it, you know it. Greek order is to show emphasis within the sentence. Therefore, you can have any case and any type of word, like a verb or a noun, at any point in the sentence.
Can you repeat that again?
Yes, Greek word order is arranged to show emphasis, which is very helpful because the author can show you what is the most important part of the sentence by putting it first. The first things are usually receiving the emphasis of the sentence. It does not go subject, verb, direct object, like it does in English. It's jumbled up. It's not determined by grammar. It's determined by emphasis. Make sure you understand that in your translations, right? So when you translate, I think it's kind of cool to sometimes keep the Greek word order when you're translating, because it can still show a little bit of emphasis in English. But don't ever do it when it makes the sentence confusing in English. So if it can still make sense in English and you can preserve the word order, I like to do it. The Greek word order, I like to do it. But if it's going to make the English sound weird, like Old Englishy or something like that, then I won't do it. Okay? So when you're translating, keep that in mind. It is okay to rearrange the words for your translation. You will usually have to. Let's take a break. Let's let our minds chill out. Ask any questions you might have, and then let's go over the homework.